Hello, everyone. Thanks for listening to Wake Up, Look Up, a podcast where we connect events happening in real time to the gospel of Jesus Christ. I'm Zach Weihrauch, and in this episode, we're looking at ancient Mayans and travel sports, and we're asking the question, have we really changed? This episode is prompted by two articles that I read this week. The first was an article about an ancient Mayan civilization that we stumbled into back in 1967 when we were excavating in South America. And one of the things we found was a mass grave collecting the bones of over 100 children. It was an awful discovery and a grotesque memory of a barbaric civilization. But recent DNA and genetic testing have revealed not just that there were the bones of 100 children, but that all 100 were male and that many of them were twins. Those who have a lot of knowledge of ancient Mayan culture have connected that mass grave to a particular agricultural myth that the Mayans believed in, a story of two twin brothers who died and were kind of reincarnated in a way that benefited the society agriculturally. So the assumption is that an ancient Mayan civilization, because you wanted to be agriculturally profitable, if you had a male child, especially if you had two twin brothers, that you would be tempted to sacrifice them to benefit yourself agriculturally. And that this obviously was a widespread practice in which no one in that culture really blinked at. You needed to live. You needed agricultural success. So of course, you sacrificed your children to get there. That's, of course, barbaric and grotesque. Child sacrifice feels as though it is a million miles away from our culture. It's awful. It's heinous. It's grotesque. But the next article I read was in The Atlantic, and it was about youth travel sports. I know there might not seem like there's a connection between the two, but the more I read the article on travel sports, the more I realized child sacrifice is still a thing today. It's just kind of taken on a new form. Travel sports are the phenomena where kids participate in a regional team, whatever sport they play, that travels sometimes all over the country, competing in various tournaments in pursuit of athletic development, achievement, and maybe eventual opportunity. And then stats surrounding travel sports are fascinating. Like, for example, 19% of parents with a child, so almost 1 in 5 parents with a child in travel sports actually take out a second job just to pay for travel sports, the travel, the participation fees, the expense. It's also become a leading cause of divorce as parents find they spend less and less time with their spouse and more time under the financial stress and weight of travel sports. The average child athlete spends over 12 hours a week participating in their sport, which is a staggering amount considering they're in school most of the day. It's also led to a phenomena that psychologists are calling sibling hatred, where actually the athletic child ends up resenting their siblings because they just don't know them. There's not enough time for them to connect relationally. All of this is to say that while travel sports are a pretty benign concept, kids competing in sports they love against other kids, doesn't seem like there's a lot wrong with that. It feels as though what the data is starting to suggest is we've bought into our own myth, the myth of a child realizing their athletic goals and dreams and achievement. And as a result, we aren't blinking at the sacrifices it's demanding of our children and of us. We're taking second jobs. We're losing our marriages. Our families are disintegrating. Our children are overworked, overstressed, overpressured. This is not really a podcast demonizing youth travel sports. Every situation is different. Every family is different. Maybe what this is a podcast really aiming at is the way that every generation has a myth that it buys into. And that myth ends up requiring us to sacrifice our children and ourselves. I hope that in the future, we don't lament our sacrifices and the effect they've had on our families the way we lament the ancient Mayans. I hope that as Christians, we're not afraid to blink, to think critically, to ask whether or not the thing that everyone else is doing is actually good for our families, for our children, for our marriages. Every myth requires us to sacrifice something. Let's make sure we're not the kind of people that sacrifice the things that really matter in pursuit of what really doesn't. Hey, thanks for watching this video. Make sure you hit like and subscribe to get future content from Wake Up, Look Up and from Christ Community Chapel. And while you're here, check out the other videos we have available.